So Tiffany Haddish, for whatever the reason or cause, is going to go over to Israel and see for herself. So this is obviously in the wake of the October 7th Hamas situation. But it also seems like, she's going to have fun. She's going to the Dead Sea and a number of other places. And I think it's very, very interesting. And this relates to her recently saying she found that she had Jewish.
Dead Sea and go and get me some. Gonna have some fun, yeah. It's gonna be great. To Tel Aviv. To Tel Aviv. I feel like I can't believe everything I see on the internet. I need to go see for myself. I know a lot of stuff on social media be not true because I see stuff people say about me and I live my life. I'm living my life and I'm like, that's not what I said. That's not true. So I feel like
all right, I got another clip. Let's watch this one right here.
On my way to Tel Aviv, then to Jerusalem. Then I'm going to the Dead Sea and go and get me some. Gonna have some fun, yeah. It's gonna be great. Then I'm gonna learn about the politics. Hey, see, I feel like I can't believe everything I see on the internet. I can't believe everything everybody's saying to me on the internet. I need to go see for myself. I'm one of those people.
Now,
on my way to Tel Aviv, then
there was a lot of people who, when they covered this, they were like, I can't watch this anymore, and this is annoying, and why is she doing that? Honestly, I don't understand the negative reaction to this simple clip. If you guys understand what I'm talking about, go online and just put Tiffany Haddish Israel. You probably didn't hear about the story. It's not the most prominent news story, but it's significant. It's relevant, especially the stuff we cover. People were really upset, even just about this simple little clip. They were angry. I'm going to show you in a second here. Candace Owens. Candace Owens is so angry by everything in this clip. I'm going to play some of this Candace Owens. What's the hate for Tiffany Haddish? I don't necessarily think she's super funny, but honestly, I don't think that many people in mainstream media, comedics, I understand that a lot of them are talented, but I don't think a lot of them are funny because the kind of topics they cover and the stuff they talk about. Christians, generally, we got a different sense of these things. So I kind of understand that. But within that, what is the big deal? Like, going to, hey, I don't know. Okay, so what? So again, I watched a lot of content and reactions to this, and I was just shocked why people were so upset. You guys want to see the Candace Owens clip already, and then we're gonna get into more about this, about the Hebrew Israelite side of it. I'm gonna play you the Candace Owens part now, okay? So when I first saw Candace Owens, I was impressed by her courage and her verbal IQ, how quick she could say what she needed to say. You know what I mean? I was impressed by those things. I was like, wow, this is impressive. And she said some stuff I thought needed to be said. I was like, oh, she's brave, But the more I watched her on various subjects and topics, and not that I saw
I'm very happy this year. I don't know. I'm feeling very optimistic. In fact, yesterday,
the more I watched Candace Owens on various topics, I realized definitely she's intelligent, but she'll speak on an issue before she's fully informed. First of all, that's something I felt that I noticed about Candace Owens. And that kind of annoyed me about her because she was so quick to have her takes. And so I'm like, why is she so willing to have these takes without really knowing what she's talking about sometimes? Then also, and this is going to be controversial, she was recently fired over this. I did find her to be, and how she would cover tragedy and different issues like that in general. And I also found her to not really be willing to ever give a charitable take to the other side. Very insincere. Like when you watch her hot takes, there's a lot of sarcasm. And I just said, you know what? This is a person, I don't think, first of all, they have a good understanding of theology based upon what I know about them and their life and things like that. And second of all, this is not a person who's the way they operate, with the way they treat other people, opponents and stuff, is not, I don't think it's somebody who Christians should be looking to as any kind of a model or a role. Now, someone may say, I watch her, but she's not a model or role. Okay, I guess. But I think over time, this stuff influences you. And so I'm way less of any. I was never a fan, but and I know I'm going long on this, but I just have a much lower opinion, and I don't think it's a godly woman, a good representation of a godly woman. Now watch her take on Tiffany Haddish. Okay, here we go. Let's turn this back up.
Are more aware than ever when they're being sold a bunch of BS. Check out this headline that ran in the New York Post yesterday. It reads, Tiffany Haddish angers fans with business class trip to Israel to, quote unquote, find a man and see war with her own eyes. Yeah, that is a lot to unpack. But before we get to the actual...
Not really. Again, what's the big deal? What's the big deal? Now, notice, so this silly little thing that Tiffany Haddish did, it's in the New York Post, angers fans. Tiffany Haddish lost 14,000 followers over this. And again, I'm not losing any sleep. She's a millionaire. I'm not, she lost 14,000 followers. I'd be nice if I could, have 14,000 followers on Instagram, right? Okay. So it's not like, oh no, we're in a crisis. But at the same time, there was definitely a negative reaction, and it was way out of proportion for someone just saying, I'm going to Israel. And so what did she say? She wants to find a man. Okay. I don't care. I mean, again, why? And, Candace Owens starts saying, "Oh, I'm happy this year," And one reason and this is where I find her incredibly insincere. When she talks, she says the reason that she's happy is because people are less willing to be sold a bill of goods about what they're being told. She specifically means in reference to Israel. So Candace Owens is happy this year because people are less likely to believe propaganda about Israel. That's what I'm saying about her insincerity. Like, I find that distasteful. So here she is, talking about this situation where there's a lot to unpack.
Clip and what's going on with her and this trip to Israel. Let's just back it up and discuss Tiffany Haddish in general, just as a celebrity, because it's really interesting to me how Hollywood basically has no standards for who they allow to be celebrities. They don't have to be remarkably talented, and a lot of them seem to be suffering with various afflictions. We've covered on this show the incredible story of Russell Brand when he was an addict and he was addicted.
Okay, so she's right about that, right? That's definitely true. But I don't necessarily need Candace Owens to tell me that, or I'm not. I already know. She's definitely right about that, isn't she? Yes, she is. That's Hollyweird for you, okay? We should be aware of that and know that. So it's just a general rant about Hollywood and celebrities in relationship to Tiffany Haddish going. But let's watch here.
The next thing you know, she was making the rounds on...
Okay, I don't care about all this. And it's funny, for hating all this stuff, Candace Owens certainly knows a lot about it. And I think part of the reason is she knows part of her fame is going after celebrities. It's not just politics anymore. She's like a sort of a celebrity herself.
Was arrested in Georgia on...
Okay, so Tiffany Haddish has DUIs. True. It's just, what does this have to do with her going on a trip to Israel, though? Do you understand? This is like, does it really have anything to do with going on a trip to Israel? You're just poisoning the well because she's going to Israel? So what? My goodness. Let her go to Israel.
End of last year, Tiffany Haddish was arrested for a second alleged DUI. The arrest came after Beverly Hills Police Department received a call.
Imagine covering Tiffany Haddish going to Israel, and you need to talk about her DUIs.
Fault her for it, but it's just interesting that Hollywood doesn't care.
I'm not even trying to fault her for it. Then why are you bringing it up? This is what I mean. I find her totally insincere and disingenuous, Candace Owens. I'm not trying to fault her for it, yet I'm going to begin the whole program discussion about her DUIs, about her going to Israel.
And sexually abusing 2 minors. According to the lawsuit, the children were recruited.
Now, I don't know about that one. Definitely seems problematic. I have to look more into that. But nonetheless, I'm just trying to take one thing at a time here. Tiffany Haddish is going to Israel. Let her go to Israel, people.
Issue an apology, just to be fair, saying that the skit was off.
See, this is what's called poisoning the well. We're 3.5 minutes into this rant, and how long has she talked about Tiffany Haddish's legal problems and woes? Can we watch the clip?
You are here today because your mother chose life.
Okay, so that's good. She's given defense for the unborn. Glad about that. That's good, but let's get on with
this. In February, she has decided to embark on a public trip. And when I mean public, she's recording herself on this trip to educate herself regarding...
Why is that in air quotes? I'm not really annoyed with Tiffany Haddish. I'm annoyed with Candace Owens. And I want Candace Owens to do good because I want her to know deeper theology and I want her to, but I'm annoyed with this. educate herself. Why is it in air quotes? It's just such an insincere, mean person.
Israel, but also to get herself a man. I'm just going to show you a couple of clips from this. I don't know if it was a live that she was doing on Instagram as she was in business class seats.
And why is it relevant she's in business class seats? Everyone keeps on bringing that up. Celebrities travel. They're not going to be in with me. Who cares?
Take a look and a listen.
On my way to Tel Aviv, then to Jerusalem, then I'm going to the Dead Sea and go and get me some. Gonna have some fun, yeah, it's gonna be great. Then I'm gonna learn about the politics.
Oops, I'm in her face.
See, I feel like I can't believe I need to go see for myself. I'm one of those people.
I'm uncomfortable. Are you uncomfortable?
No.
Does that seem weird to you at all? Trying to turn it into a rap song? Why? So black people are just going to be like, yeah, we're with it. Yeah, I'm on my way to politics. On my way to politics. See what?
Bruh. Is she like the squarest gal out there? I want it to be funny, but no, I'm not uncomfortable with Candace Owens. I'm uncomfortable with you imitating a person rapping. That's what makes me more uncomfortable. Like, listen to her. Doesn't her imitation sound the way like boomers when they imitate someone rapping? I'm just saying, if we're gonna get all personal, watch this. I'm not uncomfortable. I'm uncomfortable with your weird impersonation of someone rapping. That's what I'm comfortable with.
Yeah, we're with it. Yeah, I'm on my way to politics. On my way to politics. See what do? Like, what is?
Why is she so bothered by this? Again, the show's supposed to be about the African Hebrews of Jerusalem, so I need to get caught off. I'm just ultra annoyed with this right now. This is just an opinion, isn't it? It's just Vocab's opinion. I understand.
It's even more strange when she says what else she's going to do while she enters this war zone. Take a listen.
On my way to Israel. I'm sorry, Yamanika. I'm sorry, Yamanika. I'm going without you. I'm sorry. I'm going to go meet my future man out there. I'm out. Going to the Holy Land. I suggest you all do it.
Man, that's weird. I mean, I have a lot of questions personally.
Why? Okay. People call Israel the Holy Land. Theologically, I do not refer to Israel as the Holy Land. I'm not super upset if someone does. To me, it comes out of a misunderstanding of covenants. A long time ago, when I was a dispy, I would call Israel the Holy Land. Over time, I realized that the church is universal and it's global, and the church is all over the world, and there's no particular stretch of land that is holy. Where God's presence is, it's holy, and he's with his people, and his people are in China, and his people are in Zimbabwe, and his people are in France. You see what I'm saying? That's where his people are. His people are all over. His people are even in Canada. So I don't call it the Holy Land, but I'm not hating or tripping. And what is the big deal about this? And I like what she says. I suggest you do the same. I think we all know things would be better if more people visited Israel.
First and foremost, I think, are you sober? That doesn't look sober to me. Nothing you're doing, at least you're not sober in the mind, because why else would you be doing this? Also, may I ask why you are looking for a boyfriend in the middle of a war zone?
Somebody needs to take the clips of Candace Owens rapping. The other part where she was like imitating someone rapping with the cup and make a song out of it. Now that would be funny. Some like super Candace Owens stands out there. You know what I mean? That would be funny. I would be like, all right, someone do that. Put a little beat to it, throw on beat, and take all those clips. That'd be a good little 40-second thing.
Is that registered to you as a normal thing to do? I just want to be very clear. This is what I mean when I say people are waking up to propaganda. Who wants to go visit a country at war?
Israel is always having problems and troubles because of her neighbors. It's always like that whenever you go. Sure, sometimes it's more dangerous than others. But, Israel's going after Hamas and Gaza. So it's actually more safe in Israel because they're going after them. It may not be exactly safe in Gaza, but it never has been a place where a lot of people say, let's go visit here for a few reasons.
Does that pass the sniff test for anybody? Yeah, I definitely want to go visit this country while bombs are being dropped. That makes perfect sense. Why not visit it when they are not in the middle of a war? Wouldn't that make more sense? I visited Israel, and no, they were not in the middle of a war, and it was still a very intimidating country to get into. I've described this experience, but because of so much conflict in the region, even going through the airport, right? I got pulled out twice, got questioned. There are people, IDF soldiers, that are just standing above, pointing guns down when you go through the airport, waiting.
Notice she's talking about she wasn't going there during a war zone, and it's like this. My parents went to Israel, and it was like that. My dad got pulled out twice. He thinks they thought that he was most likely Arabic. That's the reason he supposes he had a big, thick, dark beard at the time. I don't know. But that's kind of how it is. It's like the point, right? So why is why Joe so judgmental about this?
I'll tell you one thing right now, the comments definitely passed the vibe check. This person wrote.
So this is what I mean. Watch this. This is what I mean, where you guys, she, on her national platform with millions of on the internet from strangers about Tiffany Hadish mocking her. If ignorant and dumb was a person, Candace Owens says this is good. Does she even have 10 brain cells? I'd love to know. Imagine pulling that out. Like, what is wrong with you? That's what I'm saying. This isn't good behavior.
And dumb was a person. Another person wrote, does she even have 10 brain cells? I'd love to know. A third person wrote,
doesn't even tell us who the people are, not even their at or anything. It's just a person. What?
The situation is heart-wrenching, resembling a scene from a horror movie with the tragic killing of thousands of Palestinians. Amidst this, she approaches the trip as a leisurely paid vacation. The propaganda just ain't landing the same. You don't get to just say, celebrities go out into the middle and tell us what we are supposed to think. Least of all, when this celebrity apparently has various afflictions. We're just not buying that anymore. She's no expert in anything. And I'm actually just proud of people for finally standing up to the BS. Hey guys, if you like this video, you will definitely like the full episode even better. You can find it by clicking right here.
I don't know if I've ever played a clip by Candace Owens before, but now I have. Okay. Let's see. I got a couple comments here. I'll put on the screen here. Let's see. Axe. Jeremy H. Tiffany is at least acting with a little respect and is having a good time. I agree. Thank you, Jeremy H. Ace 1447 says, hey, Vocab, do I as a Christian have to support Israel? Because I don't think, and it's odd when people try to misuse the Bible to tell me that I have to. Ace 1447. So it really depends what you mean by that in a lot of ways, you know. One thing I would say is this, that I use when I'm talking about these issues, I use more the political and, the moral calculus that comes from Scripture than necessarily theology in relationship to supporting Israel. So that has to do with an understanding of Islam and its relationship to what Christianity is. Has to do with my understanding of what the Old Testament is in relationship to the New Covenant. And has to understand with objective morals and values. That's more why I would be, in general, in support of that country, Israel specifically. Not because I would hit someone in the head with the Bible and say this and that as far as the theological or the dispensational elements, because I don't hold to those. But good question, and thank you. That's the first super chat of the day, so let me give you some love. I appreciate that. Thank you. And where to go? And what, I can't find it now? Well, I can't find what I was looking for, so let me just give you... oh, there it is. Okay. Now, let's look at some actual clips from the trip itself, okay? They're brief, and then I want to look at something Tiffany Haddish said that I'm going to criticize. So I'm going to criticize Tiffany as well here on something, okay? Are you guys ready for this?
You know, I'm very happy this year. I don't know. I'm feeling very optimistic. In fact, yesterday, I tweeted how optimistic I feel about the future. I know it's all doom and gloom, and yes, America is on the decline, but also you have to appreciate that in order for us to go up on the incline, we definitely need to be awake. And I think that right now in America, people have never been more awake, especially when it comes to propaganda. As I said in my tweet, it's just the propaganda is not landing the same.
All right. Okay, so that actually is Tiffany Haddish in Dimona, Israel. So let me explain here what's going on. So she went to a number of places as she was talking about, right? She didn't just go to Dimona, Israel. The Israelites of Jerusalem who live in Dimona, not Jerusalem, they are not from Africa, although their group spent some time in Africa before coming to Israel. So I'm going to explain what I'm saying by that. And we're actually going to read from a document where I'm going to go through some of the history here. But they left to Chicago around 1969, and they went to, I believe, Liberia. And then after Liberia, went to Dimona. And now this community of 5,000 people who say that they're Hebrew Israelites live there in Israel. So she visited them. So that's not all she saw, but that is part of what she saw. Soldier 144, you're informed, you're right. He says, is this the group that was started by Ben Ami? Which, by the way, Ben Ami means son of the people. Yes. No, you're Soldier 144. That is the group that started by Ben Ami. You are correct. That's the group. So you got it. You know your stuff. And they're in Dimona, Israel. You got it. Okay, so you are correct about that. And I normally wouldn't put a comment like this on the screen, but I need to because I thought it was relevant. All will be revealed. Twerking is an African dance. Now, I don't know if it is or isn't. I don't know if you're being serious or facetious, but that leads me to say I did think this was a little odd because the Dimona community is supposed to be known for modesty and Hebrew Israelites in general. And if you watch this, it doesn't look exactly, she's got the pants on and doing the thing. It doesn't exactly look like that. So that was, Candace Owens talked about being uncomfortable. That was the one part I was like, oh, I'm a little uncomfortable. Stuff after I show you some more pictures about this. Here we go.
Oh, y'all gotta get it. You make it all happen. Hey! Let's get it. Hey! I'm stronger now than ever before. There's no more fear. There's no more fear. The power is mine. I'm in the the truth, girl, I am free. Let's go. Don't tell me, don't say that. Don't tell me, don't do that. Cause I'm a good person. Don't tell me, don't say that. Don't tell me, don't do that.
Okay, so you get the basic idea. Now, what I want to show you here is some of the reaction and some of the news stories about this, okay? If I go too fast in this part, don't worry. These are also in the description box, okay? What we're going to be looking at here, okay? So first, I'm just showing you where I pulled those things from. It was from her Instagram. See that right here? This is her Instagram, and that's where those clips came from. That's where the clips that people got were from and all that that I initially showed you guys as well. And so it's from that, okay? Do you guys understand what I'm saying? And I'm going to show you a number of others as well here. Just give me a second. And, no big deal, but there's a lot of negative comments on this. And it is interesting. It's got 100,000 hearts when she goes to the Village of Peace. That's what they call the Dimona community there. And see what it says, African Hebrew Israelite community. See that? It's in Dimona. This is a backdrop that they put up to welcome her. And then it shows a picture of Ben Ami. If you don't know the man in purple right there, smiling, laughing, that is Ben Ami. And then this gentleman right here with the white hair, he's very known now in the community. And then there's Tiffany Haddish as well. So this group is the African Hebrew Israelites of Jerusalem. And look who, out of the 100,000 people, the trip was in February. I'm sorry. I think I said March at one point. I apologize for that. Nonetheless, this right here, that's Amari Stoudemire, famous Phoenix Sun, who I've actually talked to on the phone in wake of some controversy that he was experiencing after I did a show on him. He was actually very respectful. You know, I was very surprised that a man who, you know, sort of his notoriety would take the time and contact me and be so respectful about it after I had done a program criticizing him. So that does speak well to his character, you know, Amari Stoudemire. I'm not hating that he liked this, by the way. You know, I might go like this. I mean, I'm not going to go like it, but I'm just saying it's like, okay, I feel like hopefully positive things could come out of her going to Israel, perhaps. So there's that, whatever, okay? So that's one place. And then check this out. Oh, they took down I had a story up on Root, but now it looks like I got let me see if I can find it here. Oh, yeah, I remember. Is this it? Yeah, this is kind of weird, though. So check this out. So it's not like, you know, Tiffany Haddish, there's some issues there, right? This is from The Root, Black News and Black Views with a whole lot of attitude. Tiffany Haddish spotted in Israel with this controversial corn star visiting Black Hebrews. After the girl strip actor said she was going to Israel to learn and see with her own eyes, Hadish has resurfaced in several photos and videos. So I never seen this guy, but I guess he's into corn. And okay. And there's a lot of interesting stuff here. So let me read this. Hadish, who found out later in life that her father was an Eritrean Jew. Now, being from Eritrea is problematic for a lot of Hebrew Israelites of the One West variety. There's a lot of Hebrew Israelites of the One West variety that don't think that if your roots are from Eritrea, that you could actually be properly Hebrew Israelite or Semitic. Do you guys understand? And so you have a situation where people who are not One Westers may accept her as having Hebrew roots, but the One Westers, a lot of them, when they see this part, would say, oh, she's not actually one of us because of that. And this is interesting. Look at this. I've never seen someone so happy to be Jewish, and I'm from Israel, said Rabbi Suhan Silverman. Yes, Sarah Silverman's sister. So the comedian, Sarah Silverman, super pro-abortion, kind of anti-Christian. Apparently, she's got a sister who's a rabbi. Now, this must be in what's called Reform Judaism, which is like super liberal or something. And so then they talk about this, they talk about this, they talk about this, they talk about this, da-da-da-da-da, the criticism and all this, bada boom, bada bing. I'm not going to look at everything there. She did something with Noah Tishby. And then look at what she wrote here. So this is Tiffany Haddish writing, okay? My time in Israel was very special. I met so many different types of people. These are the Black Hebrews that practiced Judaism in the city of Dimona. I had the most fun with them. I learned so much from them. Their passion, resilience, knowledge, and love is inspiring and infectious. Black people live in Israel. Now, look, I feel like this trip could have a positive element here. This is me talking now. Because what it shows is, you know, the accusations of racism from Israel. Not that there's no truth ever to them, but that sometimes they are overblown and exaggerated basically to just smear Israel. And so notice how here she's saying, hey, they're here. And this is not even talking about the folks from Ethiopia. And that's important to understand because when people talk about, oh, the white folks over there in Israel, well, they're not really always exactly right, you know? And so I like that she brought that out. And so there it is. Yeah, Soldier 144 says, according to them, she's Ham. Correct. That's right. We've got 93 people watching. Remember, on my numbers, it aggregates all the social media sources. So right now we've got 93 watching. So there's that. There wasn't really a negative story about it, but there's a lot going on here with Tiffany Haddish in this situation in general. So, for example, when she turned 40, she had a bat mitzvah. I don't know if people knew about that. And, you know, there with, I'm sure, with her Reform Jews. This was back in 2019, I guess, when she had her bat mitzvah. And then she went on Jimmy Fallon, and you guys know the song, na 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 na. She sang that song, and there she is with the Torah scroll. And they talk about Eritrea, which is a North African country that once had a really large Jewish population, and a lot of Jews went to there to escape prosecution, especially European Jews in the 30s. And let me just read this real quick. I know it's a little small. Many Jews ended up immigrating to Israel when the country was founded as a Jewish state in 1948. In 1950, there were about 500 Jews living in Eritrea. When the Eritrea War of Independence started in 1961, many more Jews fled the country to escape the increase of violence. By 1975, only 150 Jews were in Eritrea. Eritrea gained independence in 1993, but only a handful of Jews remained at this point. In present day, there is one native Jew left, Sami Cohen. Judaism is not one of the four religions recognized by the Eritrean government, but Jews are free to worship in that country. Now, what's interesting about that is Nipsey Hussle, apparently, his father was Eritrean as well. And so some people of the One West variety, when he died, were saying, yo, Nipsey Hussle actually wasn't a Hebrew Israelite because his father was Eritrean. So the BBC covered this. Now, this is going back to other stuff because she's been doing stuff about this recently. So this seems like a continuation here. And apparently, this is, wait, hold on. Let me see. Oh, this is just other folks. Okay. They're covering other people as well here, like Michael Lamontley and Beza Baby. Bada, 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 boom. Okay. So just showing those other, there's her black mitzvah. You know, it's an interesting image. Isn't that kind of an interesting image? You know, I don't want to look too much at that. That's her father. Okay, so going through that. Now, I've got all the links here. So if you're like, wait, stop there. I'm going to open up some more of these. I just want to, they're all in the description box. Okay, just want to briefly show these. And then after this, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to read something from an academic paper, a little bit about the African Hebrew Israelites of Jerusalem, so you guys can learn a little bit more about them, because I haven't covered them in depth. I really have not covered the African Hebrew Israelites in depth very much, and I'm going to try to see how much time we have left at the end here to be able to do that, as well as a clip where she was talking to Talib Kweli, okay? So let's take a look at a few more things here. Just briefly, because it's a lot more on the internet. This is from other years, okay? I'm just showing you this is part of where she's at now. That song, Hava Nagila. That's a song she's singing on Jimmy Fallon there. You know, ba-da-ba-da-ba. This is from the forward. And these are all right in there, so you can see them. All right? All right. She's even got a page down in the Jewish Virtual Library. Isn't that wild? Look at that. Tiffany Hadish in the Jewish Virtual Library. That's pretty interesting. That's one of the more interesting. And CBN, Christian Broadcast News, that's another good news source, by the way. I should have given them a shout out the other day. I would encourage people to check out CBN. I like CBN. I think they do good stuff. DailyMail.com, always real messy, but I always appreciate that they always include primary sources a lot more than other places. So this is actually the video right there. I appreciate that they did that. New York Post, there's that. And this is what I wanted to show you real quick. Look at this. This is according to Social Blade. Not the website. This is newsweek.com. But Social Blade is a social media aggregate website where you can look at people's stuff on there. Look at this. She lost 14,000 Instagram followers in less than 12 hours. So obviously people were not into this. So like, here's what Social Blade, here's what the website is real quick. I'll show you what it is in case you've never seen it. Let's look at Social Blade. This is kind of an interesting little tool that some of you may or may not know about. No, it's not letting me go. Come on now, Social Blade. Oh, okay. Is this it? Okay, so I'm just going to put in myself, okay? So we put in myself on Social Blade. You can put other people, obviously. And then what it does is it shows you, your aggregate followers. We're almost about to hit 40,000, by the way. It has Twitter and YouTube, and then you can look at other stuff in here about people's followers. You can look at all these right here and aggregate it. And I'm not going to show you all that stuff, but it's an interesting way to go. Shout out to Andrew Essenston, who is like an expert on the Damona community, and he tweeted some pictures from when she was there as well. With the community. Notice she's got Star of David, which, by the way, I'm not against that either. That's fine to me. That's been on me, as I mentioned earlier. All right, let's get that. Now, here's what I want to play. This is Tiffany Hadish on Talib Kweli's show. If you guys remember Most Def Talib Kweli, all right, Black Star, all of that. And she's going to discuss her heritage with him. And I wanted to play a little bit of that clip, okay? So I've got a video lined up for that. Just give me a second here. I want to play this. I know we're moving fast. Actually, what's weird is what happens with a lot of these shows is a buffer is during the show, and then afterwards everything is fine. So I encourage you, please hit the refreshing button, and hopefully it'll be all right. Okay, so let me play this right here. Let's interact with this. Here's where I'm going to criticize Tiffany Haddish in a loving way for what she says.
I'm so happy I got to work on Last OG with you. You know, that was such a wonderful experience for me.
Oh, come on now.
That was such a wonderful experience for me. I just recently watched Black Mitzvah. Now, your father is Eritrean, right? And you recently leaned into your Ethiopian Jewish heritage. Is that correct?
Yes, Eritrean Jewish heritage.
Eritrean Jewish heritage.
You can call it, you can say what you want. I mean, they all.
It's all the same people.
A lot of tribes. It's a lot of tribes, man. It's a lot of tribes.
A lot of tribes. Interesting. Keep it going. Mos Def was a underground conscious hip hop artist. Very intelligent guy. Very skilled, kind of like almost like the consummate backpack rapper, and no doubt on all that. I think he's a thoughtful person. He doesn't seem hyper reactionary. I don't agree with a lot of his takes though, but I usually appreciate the way he approaches them.
Now, a lot of people don't even know that Black Jews exist. Like, when I grew up in New York, there's a lot of like Hebrew Israelites.
Oh, Lorenzo. Hold on real quick. This is totally, I'm just taking a moment out. This is my best friend from middle school. Literally going all the way back to, we met in 6th grade, right? Isn't that when we met? Lorenzo grew up in Southfield. I grew up in the South Side, not too far. And I would hang out at his house. We would take the bus and go to Eastland Mall. Shout out to Lorenzo Hunter. It's good to have friends of many, many years. Love you, brother. I grew up around the Black Hebrews. And listen to what he says. He's going to listen to this real quick.
And it's a lot of tribes.
Now, a lot of people don't even know that Black Jews exist. Like, when I grew up in New York, there's a lot of like Hebrew Israelites would stand in the corner and be like, no, the original Jew is the black man is the original Jew. And people be like, they crazy. It's like, nah, you the nigga they was talking about.
Now, this is funny. This is interesting in so many reasons. So first of all, it makes sense why Talib Kweli would think that's who they're talking about. But he's talking about Hebrew Israelites standing on the corner. So that means he's talking about one Westers, right? And he says, you're the one they were talking about. Now, I don't fault him for not knowing this, but she's not one of the people that they're talking about. And the reason is because what you just said in the beginning, Talib Kweli, it's that her father is Eritrean. And it is a difficult word, a challenging word for me to pronounce as well. I apologize for that. Since the father is Eritrean, they would say she's not a Hebrew Israelite because you're talking about people on the corner with the 12 tribes chart. So they would not be talking about her. They would be saying she's from him. Understand? But what's funny is they would be talking about Talib Kweli as an American guy. But they don't know all that because one Westers do not hold that Africans, by and large, are actually Israelites. They hold that they're Hamites, okay?
Yeah. I mean, the Bible tells you, if you read the Bible, like.
Okay, so Tiffany Haddish, I've been defending you most of the program. I raised some questions about the propriety of the dance, of course, in Dimona. But I've been basically defending you. But I don't defend her here. First of all, they're not talking about you, Tiffany Haddish, because of who your father is. First of all, I'm just saying. Second of all, she makes it seem like, if you just read the Bible, it's obvious. So she's heard some One West interpretation. There's a famous clip I played once where when her and Common were together. Can someone maybe find that clip where it's like I did a show about celebrities and Hebrew Israelism, and I think Tiffany Haddish was on the thumbnail. Can someone maybe find that? If you know where that show is and drop the link in, because in it I showed where a person, Hebrew Israelite, was approaching her and Common, telling them they were Israelites. Now, they didn't know who her father was, though. So she makes it seem like, well, if you just read the Bible, it's obvious. So listen to what she says here.
It describes everything that happened to us.
If you read the Bible, it describes everything that happened to us. So she's bought into the One West lie that the story of what happened to black folks in America and worldwide, that's in the Bible down to the T. You know, she's probably obviously talking about Deuteronomy 28. So she's bought into the propaganda.
You know, we are the ones. Like,
we are the ones. Now, the thing is, she's like friendly with mainstream Jews. Now, a lot of them are kind of reform, but if she's like talking about we are the ones in exclusion to the others, then that's going to be problematic for a relationship with the mainstream folks, because that's the old kick out. There can only be, this town's not big enough for the both of us type of thing. If she's just saying us plus them, that's a different story. But it's interesting to hear her on Talib Kweli.
we got taken away from our land, name stripped of you.
Name stripped of you. It sounds like she's trying to quote a scripture there. Being taken away from your land. But that's not a quote from scripture. Now, let me explain it. I'm not trying to minimize anything here, but we just need to show that people are now repeating common Hebrew Israelite narratives that are wrong. The Bible does talk about in Deuteronomy 28 and other places that Israel will be taken away from their land. But sister, dear sister, the land is Israel. And yes, it was horrible and awful, but the transatlantic slave trade didn't take people out of Israel. It took them out of West Africa primarily. Do we understand that? Oh my gosh. Carlos DeAndre, you're making me take a time out to deal with you. Many One Westers are now acknowledging African Jewry. Yes, you are correct that more and more people are open to it, especially IUIC. They've led the charge in that. IUIC wants to be missionaries. They like to raise money for their booster club. And so they love to take trips to Africa. And basically what they say is, if you vibe with our teaching, you must be an Israelite. It's the most silly type of parameter that you could give. They don't give any legitimate reason other than that, honestly. Then he says, Deuteronomy 28 is not from One West theology. That's actually true as well, but I know that. I have talked about, in videos I've done on the subject, the very first time Deuteronomy 28 was used as an interpretive proof for Hebrew Israelism that we have recorded. Do you know the first time, Carlos DeAndre? The first time was in 1925 with a man named Rabbi Cook, who was a black Hebrew Israelite, who came out of William Crowdy's organization. And he published a book in 1925 about it, and I've uploaded it to theshieldsquad.com. So that is true, the first two things you said, because Rabbi Cook was not a One Wester. Then he says One West theology adopted this from earlier groups. That's correct. And but I've talked about that. But that Deuteronomy 28 doesn't get you African Jewry. In fact, it gets you the opposite, because African Jewry cannot fulfill verse 68, can they? Because they're not taken on the transatlantic slave trade. So that's why we don't respect a lot of these interpretations, to be honest with you. Soldier 144 says a lot of these celebs joining this BHI movement are very unlearned and haven't even studied this doctrine in depth. That's definitely true. Now, I'm not saying she's joining Hebrew Israelism, but obviously she's repeating some of the same ideas. All right? Yeah, so Tiffany Black makes a great point, but weren't the slaves here bought and sold? What about that part of the scripture? Yeah, exactly right. So there's a lot of confusion out here, but this is what's going on, where you have her repeating Hebrew Israelite interpretation from Deuteronomy 28.
Religion, everything is scripture, culture. And
where does the Bible say that will happen? Because she's getting at the idea they're going to lose their identity. If you read Deuteronomy 28, it never says you'll lose your identity. Not once. The Bible never says that. People bring up Jeremiah 17:4, but it's incorrect.
You enslaved, yeah.
I like it, especially when you said the world raised me.
So we've watched a lot of Tiffany Hadish clips, haven't we? I'm going to show you a few pictures. Can I do that? Let me show you a few pictures from her trip here. And we've seen some of the reaction. I've defended her. I've criticized her. I didn't go too deep into their interpretation, but I thought it was important to show that. But I want to show you briefly some of the other pictures from the trip that she posted her Instagram. I'm just going to throw them right over my face. No big deal. All right, you see these. This is how, in general, the African Hebrew Israelites of Jerusalem dress. In general, it's kind of the style, so it's not the same as the one Westers you'll see out there or anything like that, you know. And this is in Dimona, and she's talking to people. I mean, people were hating on Tiffany. I mean, well, okay, that's not the greatest picture to put up to defend her, but honestly, let me show you the previous picture. Like, that's cool that she's going and talking with an older grandma and just like, to me, that's respect. So obviously, I don't agree with the theology of the African Hebrew Israelites of Jerusalem, but come on. And then here's the picture I used for the cover. I want to find out more about this guy in his book. It's fascinating. I don't know a lot about it, but it'd be interesting to see what that's about. So here's the thing I want to show you now is, let's take a look at a paper. This is like an academic paper written by Joseph Udon. Now, I don't agree with everything he writes in here, okay? But I'm going to use this to show you some examples, okay, of what the African Hebrews like to Jerusalem believe, and a little bit about their history
I feel like
and origins. Hey, that's
I can't
not
believe
right.
everything I see on the internet. I need to go see for myself. I know a lot of stuff on social.
Hold on. That's not right. Let me see if I can get it right here. Just give me a second. Oh, it's doing that. Okay, well, I know how to fix this. Just give me a second here. I have a PDF that I've pulled up that I want to read to you now. Okay, again by Joseph Udon. He's a scholar, and he writes about the African Hebrew Israelites of Jerusalem. Now, honestly, the best person, okay, to look at for this type of stuff is actually Michael Miller, Dr. Michael Miller. He is the best on this kind of stuff. Also, Andrew Essenson, who I shared some of his stuff earlier as well. Those two gentlemen know more about the African Hebrew Israelites of Jerusalem than I do, and I think that they've got some great content about them. In fact, Michael Miller has a whole book. But I still want to see what Joseph Udin says from the University of Haifa about the African Hebrew Israelites of Jerusalem and share it with you here today. And so we're going to learn a little bit more about them. This is a kind of an academic article. In the beginning, it just talks about Crowdy and whatnot. And then it talks about the commandment keepers. And that kind of goes on for a while. But I'm going to show you the part that I want to get to. Okay. Just a minute. Okay. This is the part I want. Okay. So I want to show you a couple of the things that are problematic here. Okay, let me make sure I get this size right here. Okay. It's not cooperating with that. Just a second. I need to get the... Oh, is it going to be like that? Okay, I guess it is. Just a second here, people. All right. Yeah. What, it's not going to let me scroll? Oh, I see how it's going to do it. Okay. Okay, so here we go. So look at this. During a communal Passover Seder at which a group of elders were seated, he announced, this is Rabbi Wentworth Matthew, I know one of you will betray me. So, okay, that's part of the article, page 7. Now going to page 8. Then it says, later, Ben Ami, Israel would use the same tactic, hinting that he himself was the Messiah. Understand that? So I'm switching gears now to find out about the community that she went and visited. That's what we're doing. Do you guys understand that? We're learning about the community, the African Hebrew Israelites of Jerusalem. Right now, we're learning about their founder, the follower, Ben Ami, okay? And that's what I want to show you here. And look what this says. By the time of his death in 1973, Rabbi Matthew had created a new religion and shaped a new identity for his community. Matthew constructed his version of Black Judaism from a diverse range of religions and ideas, including, among others, traditional Judaism, Christianity, voodoo, and that's true, by the way, can't be denied, and other assorted Afro-Caribbean customs, as well as Masonic ideals, occulticism, and mysticism. And that is very true indeed. Okay, let me just make this big all the way on the screen here, okay? So I'm going to take my face off here for a second. We're just going to look at this article so you can see it better. Okay, so now we're talking about the beginnings of this community there in Dimona. Okay, so let's learn a little bit about them together. Are you guys ready? All right. Ben Carter, Ben Ami Israel, and the AHIJ. Ben Carter, 1939 to 2014, is considered the founder and messiah of the AHIJ. And that is absolutely true. He is considered that. And that's why they still show his picture and all that. In 1960, Carter attended a meeting of the original Hebrew Israelite nation. And so we're in this article by Joseph Udine, and we're looking at what it says about Ben Ami, okay? And I'm having a little bit of trouble with the parameters here on the screen. Usually I don't have this kind of trouble. After which he heard a heavenly voice instructing him to bring his people out of slavery. So notice how many of these Hebrew Israelites say they received some kind of vision. Ben Ami is no exception. He claims that after he went to this meeting in 1960, he heard a heavenly voice instructing him to bring his people out of slavery. Eventually, Carter claimed that the Jewish patriarchs were black and that black Africans, their descendants, in the Americas, were the offspring of the ancient Israelites. He considered those blacks who did not subscribe to this theory inferior in status to those who did, and he viewed any other people who claimed ancestry from the patriarchs as imposters. Carter, this is the founder of the African Hebrew Israelites Jerusalem that Tiffany Hadish visited. That's why we're covering this now. A little bit of Hebrew Israelite history here for you, okay? You guys understand? Carter began his studies with Rabbi Levi Ba Shalom Fred Lang of Congregation B'nai Zakin in Chicago. The congregation he joined held the belief, not widespread among assemblies of Hebrew Israelites, that it was time for the congregants to leave America. Sometimes this is chastised as the flea doctrine. GOCC has promoted this from time to time as well. Carter's next teacher was Rabbi Abahu Rubin. Rubin, a student of Matthew, had been ordained in the latter's rabbinical college in New York and served as rabbi and educator at the Chicago Hebrew School founded by Matthew in 1952. Now, those footnotes have the sources, but I'm not looking at all of them right now. We're just learning about the history, and you can pick up this article for free at academia.edu or ResearchGate. Carlos DeAndre, I respect your opinion and I respect you coming on here. But if you're saying his info is mostly false, you honestly, and I know you can't write an essay, so I'm not going to be, ridiculous, but you need to give us some examples, sir. You need to give us an example and why it's false. Okay? Because unless you're telling me that you've read this before, unless you're telling me Carlos, that you've read this article before and have, I don't know, maybe you have a review of it, then you can't just knee-jerk say this is false, because everything I'm reading right now is true. Like, you gotta show the goods, you know what I'm saying? All right, continue on here. In 1961, Rabbi Rubin ordained Carter and renamed him Ben Ami, son of my people. Israelite communities had blossomed in Chicago over the previous decades. In 1963, Ben Ami Carter, later called Ben Ami Ben Israel, became the spiritual leader at Congregation B'nai Zakin and bore the title Moreh Sedek, teacher of righteousness. That's where, like, Tazadaki, his name comes from, by the way. So, Carlos, I've heard that, but can I be honest with you, Carlos? I'll interact with you a little bit here, sir, because you're being respectful, and I appreciate you. You have some knowledge, and I respect that. I have heard people say Elder Bowie was Ben Ami's teacher, but I'm going to be honest here. And I've met Elder Bowie, and I have a lot of respect for him. I'm not saying he cares. I'm not saying that matters. I'm just telling you my perspective, okay? Carlos, I have heard Elder Bowie was Ben Ami's teacher, but you know who I've mainly heard it from? I've mainly heard it from Israel of God, folks. I'm going to be honest with you. It's something that Israel of God tells other people, but I haven't seen a lot of evidence that that's the case. Now, I'm not saying it's not possible, by the way. Oh, I know who you're talking about. Okay, I know who you're talking about. You know what's funny about that, Carlos? I've seen that other name, Bowie, and I've wondered about, okay, so the Elder Bowie he's talking about, by the way, is not the one I meant. He's talking about a different guy. I have wondered if they were related. So I do know who you're talking about, but I know less about that Elder Bowie. I have wondered if they are related because it seems like they ran in similar circles. So, okay, well, then you're not entirely incorrect. I have also heard that, not from the Israel of God people. Okay, I apologize now that I understand who you're talking about there. Okay, let me keep on going here. All right. Bada boom, bada bing, bada bing, bada boom, where we go to it. Notably, okay, so his followers referred to him as Abba or Father. Notice how many of these guys like to take on the name Father or Abba, just like Catholics. Abba Bivens, his name is Edward Meredith Bibbins, and they call him Abba Bivens. Just similar with the Five Percenters, they call him Father. They call Clarence 13X father. Notably, Protestants enter the term father for God when Jesus is speaking to or about God in the Gospels. This appellation takes on distinct messianic overtones when we recall that the Black Israelite community sprang from the Protestant tradition and claimed to be the real Jews. Now, I don't necessarily know if it's accurate to say that father equals a messianic term. I don't. This is where I said I don't agree with everything he has in the article, but it does take on significant religious overtones. That is true. At this time, many other Black groups subscribed to the notion that African Americans were the descendants of the ancient Israelites. This shared belief eventually led to a merger of communities into the A Beta group. Louis L.A. Bryant, later known as Shalek Ben Yehuda, was a member of one of the communities that merged with A Beta into the Beta group and became associated with Ben Ami Ben Israel's congregation B'nai Zaken. Carter and his followers in the Beta B'nai Zaken temples morphed into the AHIJ. So now they're given the background here of the African Hebrew Israelites of Jerusalem. The AHIJ read the turbulence of the 1960s as divinely given, the purpose of which was to create a smokescreen for the group's escape. Now, I'm going to stop right there. It is true, and I have a formula for this, that is social media plus social unrest equals Hebrew Israelite growth. Social media plus social unrest equals Hebrew Israelite growth. That is true, but they are looking back at the 60s when there was growth, and they see it as a way for them to get into Israel. But they didn't go to Israel first. They went into Liberia. But they saw it as a way for them to get away from the United States. The organization played on the Back to Africa theme with a millennial. I always have trouble with this. It means in relationship to the millennium, but I always have trouble saying the adjectival form here, with a millenarian bent, as they believe America was on the verge of destruction. Thus, in 1963, Carter informed his congregation that he and two other individuals were being sent to Africa to explore the possibility of the congregation migrating there in mass. So this is something he said we need to do. We need to leave the United States, especially south side of Chicago where they're based. We need to go out of here to our promised land, basically. And this is very theological and vision-driven. So Ben Ami is going to take this trip with Nasik Gavriel and Ben Yaakov, travel to Africa and lay the groundwork for the move to happen. Later, the idea that the land of Israel was part of Africa would be incorporated to Carter's ideology. Do you see that? So it's like we are going to Israel, actually. In 1966, equipped with funds collected from various Israelite communities, Carter, Gavriel, and Yaakov left for Liberia. Upon the trio's return, the community organized some 300 members to leave for Liberia in different groups between 1967 and 1968. Several leaders had been vying for the chief leadership role in the movement at this time, but Ben Ami of Israel seized control of the community, aiming to lead the people out of the, quote, American wilderness, by the way, which is something that also the Nation of Islam talks about. And Carlos DeAndre is right. This plays into Pan-Africanism. And so some of the Hebrews-like groups have an element of Pan-Africanism into their mix. Sometimes they're called the RBG brews, but this is back before that was a term in the 60s. A lot was going on in the 60s. We weren't alive then, but a lot was going on. Life in Liberia was hard for the AHIJ members. By the end of 1967, only 20 members had found decent jobs, while more than 90 were still living in squalor at their camp. So every source I've read talks about how difficult it was when they went to Liberia. The Hebrew Israelites' Saturday day of rest did not accord well with Liberia's 6-day work week, and the Liberian government refused to grant permission for the colony to carry on their polygamous relationships. The 125 AHIJ members left in Liberia in 1969 were then expelled by the Liberian government, so they basically got kicked out of Liberia. After the 2 years of hardship in Liberia, Ben Ami Israel began formulating a plan to move the AHIJ community to Israel. So I'm going to say something. This is interesting. People talk about, how awful Israel is. But notice you have an African country that was established basically by Western powers, Liberia. The idea was for freed slaves to be able to go there, right? That's what Liberia was supposed to be. You have this place, Liberia, created for this purpose or whatever. And they're kicking out the African Hebrews like to Jerusalem. And so where do they go? Israel. Israel accepted them. Now, there's been problems, no doubt about that. And some of it, the community brought upon itself, honestly. Some of it is the Israeli government's confusion. It's very complicated about this issue. But it's just fascinating to see they're kicked out of there and they go to Israel. You guys understand? In 1969, as their Passover festival was approaching, the group purchased at significant cost a goat for a ritual Passover sacrifice. Somehow the goat died, either by its own rope or by strangulation. This event triggered despair in the community, but Ben Ami interpreted it as a sign that the group should offer themselves through their obedience to God. So notice, if you have a spiritual leader like this, he can interpret any sign as something like that, right? Especially if he hears from God directly. But you know what they should have heard? They should have heard, oh, we don't need to sacrifice goats anymore because Jesus Christ paid it all. That's what they should have heard. We're in the new covenant. But they didn't hear that, did they? Some members, however, saw it as a sign. This is Joseph Udine's paper you can get on ResearchGate, to go back to the United States. Additionally, some women started to rebel against the polygamy or, quote, divine marriage that had become rampant. Those members who remained came to believe that Ben Ami had a special relationship with God, and he became their undisputed leader. In 1986, Ben Ami and other AHIJ member Charles Hezekiah Blackwell visited Israel on tourist visas. Blackwell remained in the country for a year, working on kibbutz and Tesorim, and later kibbutz Mabarot. Notice, they are able to work on the kibbutz as well. I'm just saying, Israel's not as bad as sometimes people say, is it? They sent positive reports back to Ben Ami. In August 1969, Ben Ami sent 5 families to Israel. All were admitted to the country as legal immigrants under Israel's law of return, which allows any person with at least one Jewish grandparent to immigrate immediately. This is very important. You guys see this? This is how the community began there in Dimona that Tiffany Hadish recently visited. As immigrants, they were granted special status, entitling them to stipends, Hebrew classes, temporary housing, simple furniture and appliances, tax breaks, and help finding employment. This is fascinating. Isn't that fascinating? Israel government? The leader of the first group, who had stayed in Israel after the first advance party, was Blackwell. And requesting immigrant status for the group members, Blackwell stated that they were Jews practicing the traditional Jewish laws or mitzvot, and that they wanted to serve in the Israeli military. What? The group's arrival at the airport in Lod caught the Israeli Minister of Absorption and his staff by surprise. Blackwell played on the Israeli sympathies and managed to obtain rights for the group as Jewish immigrants, including apartments and food subsidies, despite lacking proof that they were in fact Jews or related to Jews as required by the law of return. Facts. With the granting of immigrant rights to these first Hebrew Israelites who landed in the state of Israel in September 1969, the establishment of the AHIJ was officially underway. Carlos DeAndre, I appreciate your comments, by the way, but just real quick, when you say just they did or not true, with all due respect, I'm not sure what you're talking about, meaning I don't know what you're referencing. If you're able to, because I don't mind putting your comments on the screen or interacting with you, because I can tell a little something. And by the way, I don't mean that in a rude way. I'm saying you know some stuff, and I like interacting with people who know some stuff. I try to know some stuff too, so it's good to have conversations with people who know stuff, right? I just can't interact with you when I don't know what you're referring to, though. So if you're able to type out a little bit more so I can understand the context, I'd appreciate it. If not, I understand you're busy, you don't have to do nothing. That's fine. It's a free country, but just trying to let you know there, sir. And shout out to you, Zion Bound. I don't have a problem with you being here either, and I hope that you are able to gain something positive as we learn about the history of the African Hebrew Israelites of Jerusalem. All right. With the granting of immigrant rights to these first Hebrew Israelites who landed in the state of Israel in September 1969, the establishment of the AHIJ was officially underway. This event sent positive reverberations throughout Israelite African American communities. The group's immigration to Israel was, for many original Israelites, confirmation that the biblical prophecies as interpreted by their leaders were now being realized and that they would all soon be restored to their rightful place in history. When the group of 39 members arrived in December, so this is Joseph Udine's article, which you can find on ResearchGate for free, about the African Hebrew Israelites of Jerusalem, the community that recently Tiffany Hadish went and visited. All right. Third group of March 1970, including Ben Ami, the Israeli authorities became suspicious. These groups were granted only tourist status, and a government order was issued not to allow any more members of the community into Israel until it could be determined whether they had a real claim to being Jews. Blackwell invoked his community's generations-old tradition that they were descended from the Falasha Ethiopian tribe through the Israelite patriarchs. Notice here how the initial Hebrew Israelites, when you go back to the old school ones, they tied in their hopes with them being descended from Ethiopians. They didn't have some of the stuff that people have now for argumentation. So they just said, well, yeah, we're descended from the Ethiopians. That was their way to gain legitimacy, or at least attempt to. Right. To this day, the Hebrew Israelites continue to claim that they are Judeans. This assertion contradicts their earlier claim to being descendants of the 10 lost tribes of Israel, which did not include the Jews from the tribe of Judah. Fascinating. Understand that? Blackwell also insisted that there was proof in the Hebrew Bible that the ancient Israelites were black and that formerly enslaved black Americans were descended from them. He did admit, however, that many men in his community had married Gentile women and even that some were baptized and married within the church. By the early 1970s, a series of tourist visa violations had allowed the AHIJ members to climb to 2,000, most of whom lived in one of 3 cities in the Negev: Arad, Mitzpeh, Ramon, and Dimona. The AHIJ's stated goal was to, quote, redeem all the blacks throughout the world from their distress and bring them to Israel inter alia in order to escape Judgment Day when America is due to be destroyed. Okay. Look what's on the screen right here, okay? Do you guys understand what this is saying? This is what's sometimes called the flea doctrine. The idea is America's going to get destroyed. We have got to get our people out of here. That's the idea here. Do you guys understand what's going on with that? That is what's being said. That's what's being thought. You know what? I feel like I need to put my picture back on the screen. You know what I'm saying? Just give me a quick second here. Hopefully I can get it right. If I can just get it right, just 1 second here. It's showing the wrong one, but whatever. Let me see if I can join you again. Yeah, that's definitely not the right camera angle, but I mean, I look awful on that camera angle. Let me see. Is it gonna let me fix it? Camera. There we go. Yeah. Okay. That's a little bit better. Okay, there we go. I feel like this is a little more personal. I had taken myself out of the picture literally for a while, but I'm back, baby. Okay, so here we go. Looking through this. Okay. Where did we go? Where were we at? Where, anybody remember where I was? What page? What picture? Where are we at here? Oh yeah, the idea America's going to be destroyed, so you got to flee. Yeah. That's something that some Hebrew Israelites have believed and still believe to this day. Like I said, GOCC, sometimes called the flea doctrine, as it were. Some of you guys have seen we've done shows on that and whatnot, so that's a real thing for sure. And interesting stuff, right? Isn't it? I think so. How y'all doing out there? Are you guys enjoying the show so far? I hope so. I'm not a fan of the way the color is here, though. Let me see if I can adjust it. But all right, continuing on here. Okay, Ben-Ami ben Israel proclaimed that the land of Israel was rightfully theirs and that all white Jews would be deported to their countries of origin. This idea echoed the rhetoric of the Palestinian Liberation Organization, backed at the time by the Arab League, which urged the deportation of all Jews from Palestine to make way for the return of the Palestinian refugees. Further inflaming the situation was Clarence Ellis, a.k.a. Elkanan, one of Ben-Ami's chief advisors, who declared that the group had returned to the land of Israel in order to, quote, liberate Israel from the false Jews, the white Jews. This is what they're saying while they're over there. Pretty wild, right? The 1970s witnessed a continuation of the struggle between the AHIJ and the Israeli authorities. Over time, the community's leaders' verbal statements and writings, what's it say here, became, watch what it says here, increasingly anti-Zionist and anti-Semitic. In 1971, the housing dried up completely for the AHIJ. Their initial government-granted apartments were being overrun with illegal immigrants. Landlords were unwilling to rent to them, and public housing was denied. African Hebrew Israelites were being turned away from Israel at the airport. Ben-Ami called a press conference near Jerusalem and publicly likened Israel to apartheid South Africa while he's living there. Back in Chicago, Prince Asel ben Israel, dubbed the international ambassador, he recently passed away, and it was like a big deal, that gentleman, of the African Hebrew Israelites, also called a press conference during which he referred to Israel as a racist state and threatened to overrun the country with plane loads of black men. These are quotes, by the way. Notably, Prince Asel led a fierce anti-Israel and anti-Semitic political campaign in America, enlisting the support of Farrakhan and the Nation of Islam. And by the way, they're still cool with each other to this day. What I mean is the AHIJ and the NOI. I recently did a presentation on the NOI where I showed Ben Ami at one of their Million Man March events. In 1972, the Supreme Court of Israel rejected a petition by 8 Hebrew Israelites to obtain immigrants visas under the Israel's law of return. The court ruled that they did not qualify because they failed to prove that they were Jewish. It was at this point that AHIJ members became known in Israel as the Black Hebrews. In October of that year, Ben Ami Israel consolidated his power, granting leadership positions to his closest allies and proclaiming national guidelines for members of the AHIJ community. Within these guidelines were a set of punishments applicable to all those who broke his rules, which, by his claim, were transmitted to him by divine revelation. I've got a whole bunch of Ben Ami books back there. They are incredibly problematic. The man was certainly a false teacher. Doesn't mean I don't like the African Hebrew Israelites of Jerusalem or respect some of the good things they've done, but he was a false teacher. He made false claims. He said messed up stuff about Jesus. He got into some weird new agey type stuff. Massive problems. He's a false teacher. And he claimed that he was hearing from Gabriel and visions and all this. False teacher all the way through. And he's not the Messiah and he's not messianic. I'm sorry. All right. So continuing on here. Those who defied Ben Ami were expelled from their apartments, excommunicated from the community, and in some cases, beaten. With most members lacking any identification or permission to work and live in Israel, excommunication obviated any means of subsistence. One dissident was even killed during a beating, leading to arrest, convictions, and jail time for some of Ben Ami's supporters. I may have to cover that sometime. And, here's the articles down here that are directly related to this. This is all sourced out. As the attacks continued, the tide of Israeli public opinion shifted from one of sympathy and kinship to one of disdain. Well, you can imagine why with these situations going on. After repeated confrontations with the Israeli citizens and the police, as well as a murder within the AHIJ community by one of their own, the local police, in apparent conjunction with the American government, began arresting and deporting community members who caused any trouble at all. In response, Ben Ami denounced Israel as a racist Jim Crow country and organized demonstrations in which American passports were burned. The situation was coming to a head. Wholesale disappearance within American Hebrew Israelite communities in and around Harlem, Chicago, and Detroit were reported to the American and Israeli authorities. By June 1974, more than 500 Hebrew Israelites were living in Israel, only a handful of whom had attained legal citizenship. The AHIJ information minister boasted that the group's members would be admitted to Israel with a tourist visa, automatically available to them as holders of American passports, and then disappear. Many cases were reported of young women, some married and others single, some pregnant and others with children, who announced that they sold all of their possessions in order to immigrate to Israel and then disappeared without a trace. Family members who tried to search for these women were sometimes confronted by Blackwell and other members of the community who were called Nasim, or princes, of which there were 12, including Blackwell, Ben Ami, and Ben Yehuda. This is the African Hebrew Israelite of Jerusalem community's history, people. The Council of Princes was said to be part of the ruling body of the sect. Nonetheless, Ben Ami ben Israel, who was called the Prince of Princes, father, and our master by group members, functioned as an absolute ruler. Community members would bow down to him if they ran into him in the street. He was judge, jury, and executioner when it came to disputes within the community, including on matters of marriage and divorce. Only Ben Ami ben Israel was allowed to speak with the authorities or the media unless he granted someone explicit permission to do so. According to the Israeli police, the community has their own system of punishment, including corporal punishment, confiscation of passports, and excommunication. At least in the past, it was reported that women were kept within the AHIJ against their will. Wow. And by the way, there's a book written by a former member of this community. It's called Israel's Secret Cult. It has a skull in the picture, and it seems to confirm some of this stuff even still going on. Outwardly Crass, thank you for the super chat and the comment. I'm going to put it's on the top of the screen here. Talking about Apologeticon, and it was great to meet so many people there, including apparently you. And the comment reads, vocab was great to finally meet you at Apologeticon. Your classes were great. Had to ask the simple questions about Galatians for the people who don't watch you regularly, being the best book for rebuttal in the Q&A. God bless. Well, thank you very much, and thank you for being the second super chat of the day as well. I very much do appreciate that very much. No doubt. Okay, so there is more to this article, as you can tell. This is like an academic paper that's like 24 pages. It's got all the sources cited. I'm going to try to drop the link in here so you can pick this up. I can't go further into this right now at this time, but I do want to say one final thing as we wrap this up and kind of summarize what we've talked about today, okay? What we've talked about today is Tiffany Hadish, a comedian from America, her recent trip to Israel, and how it gained a lot of unfair criticism by people like Mark Lamont Hill and the other media here and there. And also, she lost 14,000 followers on Instagram. And of course, Candace Owens. I defended her on that. Then we went and showed some clips and different things where she is tapping into some kind of Jewish identity, and then criticized briefly a clip where she was talking to Talib Kweli. And in that one, she was basically saying, well, it's in the Bible, and trying to use basically a Hebrew Israelite interpretation to justify some of this stuff of what she was saying. And obviously, we thought that was problematic. Then we looked at a little bit after looking at the video and the pictures and all that and the news stories and the links. Then we looked at Joseph Yadin's article about the African Hebrew Israelites of Jerusalem and went through some of their history so people can know more about who they are and where they came from. Now, here's the last thing I want to say to you, just about going to Israel in general. So let's just talk here, Christians especially, and say this. Why should you go to Israel if you can? And why is the land of Israel itself, in a way, an apologetic for Christianity? It functions as an apologetic because the things described in the Bible happened in that land by and large. And so I'm going to encourage people to get books on archaeology. This is a simple introduction one. It has a free pull-out poster inside, right? This is generally designed for like high school and whatnot from Master Books, but it's a very helpful introduction to this in the Wonders of Creation series. The Archaeology book by David Down. And this has so many great pictures and maps. And the reason why I'm bringing that up is because a lot of this happens, of course, where? In the land of Israel. And when you go there, it's helpful to see these things for yourself or the ruins of these things. And you can, look at this. This is a very helpful little book that's got all kinds of stuff. Also, it gets into stuff with Egypt and basics of archaeology. Really, really good stuff. Babylon stuff, all kinds of stuff. Again, the Archaeology book by David Down. This is like a friendly user resource. But there's also other books like that I would recommend, such as Understanding the Land of the Bible. It's an older one by O. Palmer Robertson, a biblical theological guide. And, it'll show different maps and then interact with them. That's a helpful little book as well. If you want something a little more hardcore, I recommend the New International Dictionary of Biblical Archaeology published by Zondervan. Now, some of these resources are old, but they still have a lot of good stuff in them where you can see the truthfulness of the Bible partially from archaeology. Now, we don't claim archaeology is what proves the Bible, but it's good corroboration, right? Here's a very helpful book, very easy to read, The Stones Cry Out, lots of great pictures, J. Randall Rice. And I thought this is so well written. You don't have to agree with everything he says about everything, but he's got so many charts and pictures. This is a great book, The Stones Cry Out, with a great title by J. Randall Price. I'd encourage you to get that if you're interested in this. Older resources, such as Archaeology in the New Testament by E.M. Blacklock, another older one, but still good. Archaeology and Bible History, Joseph Free and Howard Voss. The reason why some of the times the sources I mentioned that are older in relationship to this is sometimes because there's not as much positive stuff on the archaeological type, but this one is newer. Biblical Archaeology, Volume 2, Famous Discoveries That Support the Reliability of the Bible, second edition. There's obviously a first. David Graves. And I really like this book. This is one of the newer ones I've got on the subject, but just very helpful books. And my point by saying all that is when you go to Israel, you get to see all that, and it's very helpful. And there's even the Archaeological Study Bible. Let me just show this real quick. This is the NIV one. They have an ESV one now as well. And it's really a cool Bible. The font is a little small. The font's definitely a little small. But in the back of this, it has something that almost all Bibles have that is important. And you know what it is, ladies and gentlemen? It's maps. The Book of Mormon doesn't have maps in the back. Why? Because nobody knows where it really happened. The Quran doesn't have maps in the back. Why? Because everything basically is within one region. What would be the point? The Bible has maps in the back. Why? Because these are the places where these things really happened. And so within all this framework, I just want to stop and not talk about Tiffany Haddish or Ben Ami Carter or anything like that. And I just want to remind you that the reason why these exist in the back of your Bible is because this gospel, this good news, this history really happened on planet Earth. And you can actually go visit the places where it happened, and you can visit the people's graves, and you can see the ruins and all of that because the Bible really happened. And Israel certainly is part of that. And that's a beautiful, powerful thing. Got some more powerful shows lined up. We are in the middle of a move over the next 4 weeks, so it's going to be challenging and trying, but we're going to keep at it. I appreciate the support in the meantime. And I just want to give shout out. I said I was going to give shout out to people who support the channel every show. Sometimes I forget to do that. And sometimes I forget to do something else I intend to do, which is the whole thing with commercials. I forgot both those things today. But I want to give a shout out to 2 specific people who have supported this week via Cash App. One is someone I've gave a shout out before. But the thing is, when you keep on doing it, I want to keep on giving you a shout out. Alan Torres, very much appreciated that throughout the show, whether I'm doing a program or not, you're supporting. And also Nicholas Holyfield. Thank you, Nicholas Holyfield and Alan Torres, as well as the other people who have helped out through Cash App as time goes on. For example, Tim Crocus. And the way that the Cash App works is you just go on Cash App and it's Street Apologist. It's the money sign there, $ Street Apologist. That's what it is. So I just want to say thank you very much, guys. And so I think today was an informative show. Shout out to D New and Kate Up True. Everyone subscribe to him coming through there at the end. Much love to y'all. God bless and have a great weekend. Shalom.